Rex 84, short for Readiness Exercise 1984, was a classified scenario and drill developed by the United States federal government to detain large numbers of American citizens deemed to be national security threats, in the event that the president declared a state of national emergency. The plan was first revealed in detail in a major daily newspaper by reporter Alfonso Ciardi in the July 5, 1987 edition of the Miami Herald. Possible reasons for such a roundup were reported to be widespread opposition to a U.S. military invasion abroad, such as if the United States were to directly invade Central America. To combat what the government perceived as subversive activities, the plan also authorized the military to direct ordered movements of civilian populations at state and regional levels, according to Professor Diana Reynolds. Earlier reports on Rex 84 were published as early as 1984 by the Spotlight newspaper and other far-right publications, as well as an affidavit filed by attorney Daniel Sheehan of the Christic Institute in the Lepenka bombing case. These claims did not prove to be reliable based on later reporting and research. Existence of a master military contingency plans, garden plot, and a similar earlier exercise, Lantern Spike, were originally revealed by journalist Ron Ridinghour, who summarized his findings in an article in Counter-Spy. Rex 84 was similar to a plan in a 1970 report written by FEMA Chief Louis Juffrider, while at the Army War College, which proposed the detention of up to 21 million American Negroes, if there were a black militant uprising in the United States. Transcripts from the Iran-Contra hearings in 1987 record the following dialogue between Congressman Jack Brooks, Oliver North's attorney Brendan Sullivan and Senator Daniel Anu, the Democratic chair of the Joint Senate-House Committee. Congressman Jack Brooks.
So a lot of y'all may wonder, what does this all mean? What's the point of all of this? And the point is to show you that it's chess, not checkers. The game been against all of us this whole time. The racism, the niche political movements, the false culture movements, all of that was designed to dupe us and blind us into chasing red herrings so we never be none the wiser. And they profit from our misery and pain heavily while we stand and fight useless and never-ending battles of political correctness. So hopefully after today's video, you guys take a long, hard look at the ones that claim to be heroes and saviors to you. Also, that you start to realize that a lot of the biases you guys may have are engineered and constructed.
Colonel North, in your work at the NSC, were you not assigned at one time to work on plans for the continuity of government in the event of a major disaster?
Mr. Chairman, I believe that question touches upon a highly sensitive and classified area, so may I request that you not touch upon that, sir.
I was particularly concerned, Mr. Chairman, because I read in Miami papers and several others that there had been a plan developed by that same agency, a contingency plan in the event of emergency that would suspend the American Constitution. And I was deeply concerned about it and wondered if that was the area in which he had worked. I believe that it was.
May I most respectfully request that that matter not be touched upon at this stage. If we wish to get into this, certain arrangements can be made for an executive session.
Plans by the U.S. government for rounding up people perceived by the government to be subversive or a threat to civil order have existed for many decades. For example, from 1967 to 1971, the FBI kept a list of over 100,000 people to be rounded up as subversive, dubbed the ADEX list. See also, NSPD 51, COINTELPRO, Non-Detention Act, Posse Comitatus Act, Violent Radicalization and Homegrown Terrorism Prevention Act of 2007 Terrorist Screening Database Number Fly List, Palmer Raids. References. See also Martial Law Concerns, Congressman Jim McDermott, House of Representatives, March 11, 2003. External links, article by Frank Morales about Operation Garden Plot. the larger operation of which Rex 84 was a part. An edited version of this article appears in Covert Action Quarterly, number 69, Spring-Summer 2000. Foundations are in place for martial law in the U.S., Rick Goldstein, Sydney Morning Herald, July 27, 2002, Chip Burlett, Right Who's Left, discussion of Rex 84 conspiracy theories.
So this next clip would be just to give a clear indication of this agency's motivations and their motives. What makes them do what they do and why they do what they do. These people are not for the good of the public. The public is a classified enemy of the state by default. You guys have to understand this.
Tonight on Frontline, an investigation of the CIA and its role in international drug dealing.
The history of the CIA runs parallel to criminal and drug operations throughout the world, but it's coincidental.
Is the CIA using drug money to finance covert operations?
Narcotics proceeds were used to shore up the Contra effort.
Something's wrong. Something is really wrong out there.
Tonight, guns, drugs, and the CIA.
From the network of public television stations, a presentation of KCTS Seattle, WNET New York, WPBT Miami, WTVS Detroit, and WGBH Boston. This is Frontline with Judy Woodruff.
Good evening. Two of the most persistent offensives of the Reagan presidency have been the war against communism in Central America and the war on drugs here at home. But investigations of America's secret war in Nicaragua have revealed mounting evidence that the Central Intelligence Agency has been fighting the Contra War with the help of international drug traffickers. It is not a new story. Tonight's Frontline investigation traces the CIA's involvement with drug lords back to the agency's birth following World War II. It is a long history that asks this question. In the war on drugs, which side is the CIA on? Our program was produced by Leslie and Andrew Coburn. It is called Guns, Drugs, and the CIA, and is reported by Leslie Coburn.
Illegal drugs are one thing no community in America can, should, or needs to tolerate. America's already starting to take that message to heart. That's why I believe the tide of battle has turned, and we're beginning to win the crusade for a drug-free America.
Subcommittee on Narcotics, Terrorism, International Operations will come to order. From what we have learned these past months, our declaration on war against drugs seems to have produced a war of words and not action. Our borders are inundated with more narcotics than at any time ever before. It seems as though stopping drug trafficking in the United States has been a secondary U.S. foreign policy objective, sacrificed repeatedly for other political and institutional goals, such as changing the government of Nicaragua, supporting the government of Panama, using drug-running organizations as intelligence assets, and protecting military and intelligence sources from possible compromise through involvement in drug trafficking.
If we start with the premise that drug trafficking is morally reprehensible, our government agencies are not supposed to do anything like that, but they deal in a practical world.
Would you raise your right hand, please?
Ramon Milian Rodriguez saw that world as the chief accountant of the Colombian cocaine cartel, responsible for managing $11 billion in drug profits. Now serving a 43-year sentence for money laundering, he has been a key witness for a Senate investigation probing links between drugs and the CIA.
Let's say, for instance, a drug group was involved in a war with a terrorist group, a communist terrorist group. Well, it would behoove the CIA to give that drug group as much help and advice as possible so they could win their little war.
The history of the CIA runs parallel to criminal and drug operations throughout the world, but it's coincidental.
Victor Marchetti came to know the world of covert operations as a longtime CIA officer. He is the highest-ranking agency official ever to go public about what he learned.
It goes all the way back to the predecessor organization, OSS, and its involvement with the Italian mafia, or La Cosa Nostra, in Sicily and southern Italy. Later on, when they were fighting the communists in France and that, they got in tight with the Corsican Brotherhood. The Corsican Brotherhood, of course, were big dope dealers. As things changed in the world, the CIA got involved with Kuomintang types in Burma who were drug runners because they were resisting the drift towards communism there. Same thing happened in Southeast Asia, later in Latin America. And some of the very people who are the best sources of information or who are capable of accomplishing things and the like happen to be the criminal element.
The CIA has had a solid rule against being involved in drug trafficking. That's not to say that some of the people whom CIA has used or been in touch with over the years may well have themselves been involved in drug traffic, but not the CIA.
If the CIA is going to, if their job is to maintain the safety of our country and freedom by manipulating foreign powers to do what this country wants, and if the guy that's holding the power at that particular moment happens to be a drug lord, then you have to get involved with the drug lord.
As a result, we kept getting involved with these kind of people, not for drug purposes and not for personal gain, but to achieve a higher ideological goal.
In a refugee camp in northeast Thailand, there live the remnants of one such involvement. They are the Hmong or Mao tribe. While American troops were fighting in Vietnam, these people were the foot soldiers of a secret CIA army. They fought an undeclared war in northern Laos, across the border from North Vietnam.
They're hill people. They're little guys. Like most hill people, they're pretty fierce. In Laos, we were the guerrillas. The war in Laos was a textbook example of what can be done in unconventional warfare.
General Richard Secord is one of many veterans of the CIA's secret war in Laos. Because Laos was officially neutral, American troops could not be used. The CIA relied on massive air power and a tribal army to fight the local communists and the North Vietnamese. On the ground in northern Laos, a handful of CIA officers directed as many as 85,000 soldiers drawn from the mountain tribes. But American officials did more than just send their allies into battle.
Early on, I think that we all believed that what we were doing was in the best interest of America, that we were in fact perhaps involved in some not so desirable aspects of the drug traffic. However, we believed strongly in the beginning that we were there for a just cause.
Ron Rickenbach served in Laos as an official for the U.S. Agency for International Development from 1962 to 1969. He was on the front lines.
These people were willing to take up arms. We needed to stop the red threat. And people believe that in that vein, you made, certain compromises or certain trade-offs for a larger good.
This larger good that they end so many lives and cause so much suffering and turmoil for. Let alone, not to mention the fact that a lot of these individuals compromise their own morals. To keep it short and sweet, the greater good that he speaks of is the New World Order, the one world government, the order out of chaos. That's what's been happening, that's what's happening now, and that's what continues to go on until they meet their aim.
President Biden talks of a new world order. If he's serious, he will need a strong dollar.
Highnesses, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a very, very good morning on what is the first official day of World Government Summit here at Dubai Expo 2020. And the title of this session Are we ready for a new world order? Well, the organizers here are nothing if not ambitious. This is, I think you will agree, a daunting subject for discussion at just after 9 a.m. on a Wednesday morning here in the relative calm of Expo 2020. But tackle it we must, because I believe what is clear is that we have hit an inflection point. We are certainly living in a unique age of uncertainty and volatility in global affairs. Whether you are from the global north or the global south, we have all collectively lived through the twilight zone that was the pandemic and the changes to our social, our digital, and our fiscal landscape. And just as the world re-emerges from the pandemic, we are faced with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which certainly feels like a transformative geopolitical moment.
My expertise, as you know, is CIA, Marine Corps, 3 CIA secret wars. I had a position in the National Security Council in 1975 as the chief of the Angola task force running the secret war in Angola. It was the 3rd CIA secret war I was part of. The national security law creating the National Security Council and the CIA, as you know, was passed in 1947. The CIA was given this charter to perform such other duties and function as might be necessary to the national security interests, and given a vague authority to protect its sources and methods. I think it was in the mid-'80s that I coined this phrase, the Third World War, because in my research I realized that we were not attacking the Soviet Union and the CIA's activities. We were attacking people in the Third World. And I'm going to just quickly, in the interest of time, just give you a little sense of what that means, this Third World War. Basically, it's the third, I believe, in terms of loss of life and human destruction, the third bloodiest war in all of history. They undertake to run operations in every corner of the globe. They also undertook the license of operating just totally above and beyond U.S. laws. They had a license, if you will, to kill, but also they took that to a license to smuggle drugs, a license to do all kinds of things to other people in other societies in violation of international law, our law, and every principle of nations working together for a healthier and more peaceful world. Meanwhile, again, they battled to convert the U.S. legal system in such a way that it would give them control of our society. Now, we have massive documentation of what they call the secret wars of the CIA. We don't have to guess or speculate. We had the Church Committee investigate them in 1975, gave us our first really in-depth, powerful look inside this structure. Senator Church said in the 14 years before he did his investigation that he found they had run 900 major operations and 3,000 minor operations. And if you extrapolate that over the whole period of the 40-odd years that we've had a CIA, you come up with 3,000 major operations and over 10,000 minor operations. Every one of them illegal, every one of them disruptive of the lives and societies of other peoples, and many of them bloody and gory beyond comprehension almost. Extensively, we manipulated and organized the overthrow of functioning constitutional democracies in other countries. We organized secret armies and directed them to fight in just about every continent in the world. We encouraged ethnic minorities to rise up and fight, people like the Mosquito Indians in Nicaragua, the Kurds in the Middle East, the Monks in Southeast Asia, and of course, we have organized, and we still do, and fund death squads in countries around the world, like the Treasury Police in El Salvador, which are responsible for most of the killing of the 50,000 people just in the 80s, and there was 70,000 before that. And orchestration, CIA, secret teams, and propaganda led us directly into the Korean War. We were attacking China from the islands Quemoy, Matsu, Thailand, Tibet. A lot of drug trafficking involved in this, by the way, until eventually we convinced ourselves to fight the Chinese in Korea, and we had the Korean War, and 1 million people were killed. Same thing for the Vietnam War, and we have extensive documentation of how the CIA was involved at every level, or the national security complex, because it's a very cooperative thing, into manipulating the nation into the Vietnam War. And we wound up creating the Golden Triangle, in which the CIA, Air America airplanes were flying in arms to our allies and flying back out with heroin. We launched the largest, this is something that Jimmy Carter did, Admiral Turner brags about it, the operation in Afghanistan. Biggest single operation, I'm told, in the history of the CIA's secret wars. And sure enough, very quickly we produced the Golden Crescent, which is still the largest source of heroin perhaps in the world today. Trying to summarize this Third World War that the CIA, the U.S. national security complex with the military all interwoven in it in many different ways, has been waging. Let me just put it this way. The best heads that I coordinate with studying this thing, we count at least minimum figure 6 million people who've been killed in this long 40-year war that we've waged against the people of the Third World. These are not Soviets. We have not been parachuting teams into the Soviet Union to kill and hurt and maim people, especially not since 1954, when they developed actually a capability of dropping atomic weapons on the United States. They aren't British, French, Swedes, Swiss, Belgians. We don't do bloody, gory operations in the countries of Europe. These are all people of the Third World. They're people of countries like the Congo, Vietnam, Cambodia, Indonesia, Nicaragua, where conspicuously they nor their governments do not have the capability of doing any physical hurt to the United States. They don't have ICBMs. They don't have armies or navies. They could not hurt us if they wanted to. There has rarely been any evidence that they really wanted to. And that, in fact, is perhaps the whole point. If they had had ICBMs, we probably wouldn't have done the things to them for fear of retaliation. Cheap shots, if you will, killing people of other countries of the world who cannot defend themselves under the guise of secrecy and under the rubric of national security.